people to tell you.
Good morning. It is Tuesday, January 4th, and this is the meeting of the Story County Board of Supervisors work session for American Rescue Act funds.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I need to get my mouse.
Okay. Okay, so first up are updates from the previous meeting. The updates from the previous meeting that everyone needs to share additional information that you want to share now, or you want to wait till we get on into the meeting.
I can wait until you get to each one.
Okay, great.
I don't have anything to talk. I will just make a note that our, the ISAC work group that Lisa and I are on, not that many one, we had discussed in Scott County, but our larger one meets on January 13th. So that's what I have in my calendar.
So continued review of eligible external and internal applications. Did you want to just go ahead and start with the internal ones and move those through, or would you rather start with external? I don't care which one we start with.
Fine with either. I think these are internal, and they're small, but they're not as many as we have on our external, but whichever folks want to do, I'm fine with.
Internals, probably fine.
So we can just go through the list again if you want. We grow wastewater systems.
I just want to have the sheet that we had, or I think this was on our website, that had, like our original ones that have been budgeted, amended, confirm whether that's for sure what we were doing. And then we had items not finalized or suggested pieces, and I kind of X out which ones we already, that were already in the previous amendment that we were taken off.
Which, what's the title? Is that the ARPA table internal?
It's finances budgeted approved.
I know, is that the one she's looking at?
I think
Is that
so.
the one?
Yes. Yes, yes, that is the one.
So has this been updated? Since Word, or how are we keeping track of what we're doing?
So what I did was, so I looked at the top ones, I think are the ones that we initially had approved at the board, but we were kind of re-looking at those. And the items not finalized. So I have like the land acquisition, the Ocean water quality, Oxbow restoration, the Heart of Iowa Nature Trail, the Tech 84 scanner, and the video upgrade. X off is they were ones that were on the agenda, the 28th, that we took off, that we said they were not eligible, or they were low priority, so we took them off our eligibility. So I have the only ones under the items not finalized suggested were the edge of field practices were still available. The HSC, HVAC, the COVID testing for the jail, and the vaccine testing, 607,000. Well, I kind of came with a total of, if you look at all the projects in the top, which comes to that 2 point, no, the other page. No, wherever you just got.
So it's
Oh, it's just,
scroll.
okay, so at this one, you get the 2.356 million total there. And the total amount of items not finalized, but have been, that are still eligible, taking out all the other ones, was 1,067,000 for a total of $3,423 and $3,423,400. That makes sense.
Yeah, this is one I was spending the most time.
Yeah, the spreadsheet looks, that's what.
What month did you have?
Oh, that's when you're going to.
This,
Okay.
this was when I spent more time looking at it. I was kind of bouncing around. Make sure I had everything right. What did you ask me again? Sorry.
This is, I think you're right, the final amount, does this amount 3.5?
I had, it was a 3,423,400. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't.
I had 3,508,545.
That's what I
Yeah,
have.
that's what the spreadsheet has.
I think we need to settle on one of these spreadsheets to update it. Going back and forth.
Yeah, I think the
They're in different formats
spreadsheet,
and it's getting rather confusing.
yeah. I think the spreadsheet that you were looking at, I don't know that it's entirely been updated with some of the newer estimates.
Okay.
So what's the one we're looking at right now?
This one is Q&A and application.
On master only, I've been using it for.
This week. What are the numbers that we were working with?
So, what do you think if we remove those projects that we've eliminated? Is that,
I think that, right. I think there's 0 on here, right?
yeah,
Right,
but if we just pull them off. the
They've had
sheet
board action.
entire- Yes, we already took action on those.
I wonder if it might be good to just have them from historical. And
Yeah, if we, if we want to put them on a different sheet, I copied it too, so if you want, Leanne, I can.
I just did them for discussion. They're there. Because there's zeros and tally, they won't affect the bottom.
It just gets busy.
can,
And
and
they've already been
these are
approved.
now all approved. Potential approval, we approved, them, correct?
Well, we haven't voted on.
No.
No,
Didn't vote on the board meeting.
no, we only voted on
Okay,
the ones we were not approving.
that's right. I'm sorry. thinking it would be nice, okay. So I don't lose the thought. It'd be nice if there were an approval date column. The answer, we can keep track and go back to board minutes if we needed to. I was trying to think ahead.
So has anybody had a chance to look at the water quality, that the rules that water projects have to fit in to qualify?
Actually, so what is it, the EPA standard? I think it was pretty broad. So I'm just saying that those particular standards.
It's state DNR rules. It's the
Right.
eligibility. What are you thinking about?
I'm just a little nervous about the McFarland Lake renovation project. I went looking again last night and then got distracted by city projects. So that's the one that just is making me I just am not 100% comfortable with that one. And that was the reason I asked that we not approve all the internal ones, because I was
Okay,
trying to get back to doing a little bit more research on that one.
sorry.
And this is my issue. We don't have to spend time researching it now in this meeting. We can I can just make sure I get my questions answered as best as I can, but we can go through the rest of them and just move those ones forward.
Well, I have it down to for coding wise, it was under 5.9. What we still have that particular one.
Yeah, I know it fit in a category. I just want to make sure. It just seems like all of the water ones are really not, I don't know. I'm sure I'm making something out of nothing. So we can just move on.
I just made a note, not on my tracks, I don't have to walk you through it.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So then we've got the Hickory Grove wastewater system. Front counter barriers, Justice Center, HVAC. Human Services, HVAC. Older equipment for the jail, video. Sorry, I didn't believe this on. Vaccine and testing. Procedures. For the back scanning.
Did you include it, field nutrient? Oh, no, excuse me, I'm sorry. Field practices. E.
But it's on there.
Okay. I
Were there any concerns with the other projects outside of the McFarland?
I didn't have any issues with them, that's right. I didn't have issues with the McFarland one. I understand if you have some questions on that, then that's fine.
I have no problem.
So Leanne, can you just do the rest of them on for the next agenda? Or for approval?
I think you can go ahead and put them on and we can, I can bring in any information from Mike at the meeting.
Okay.
I'll get his answer before the meeting, so. Rather than us have another meeting.
Good point. So we want to external. We'll start with, just start at the top of the spreadsheet that, does everybody have Linda's spreadsheet?
Same thing, you just did it in categorizing.
Yeah, there's more information, and I hated to bring up, do another spreadsheet, but the other one was read only, and I didn't want to mess with anybody else's work anyway. So that's why I did the one that kind of put them together. And it's something on there.
Is it this one? Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I did something on mine after I sent it to you, I'm sorry. I grayed out the ones that are not eligible. Because I need to determine we're not eligible. Under infrastructure, wastewater 4 was not eligible. I just graded out on mine, so I didn't look at it. And 33 and 37 were not eligible. Under infrastructure. And under negative economic impacts, ways down, 34 was not eligible. And then under building projects, all of them were ineligible. So I think what we had decided. So I just did that for, thanks, and I just kind of did that for myself, so we're still on, but I wouldn't be paying much attention to them.
Yeah, I highlighted on the sheet that you did, so that I just, that those are not my, not areas to look at, so. I appreciated how you chunked them together, organized them together.
Well, thank you. Under the negative economic impacts, I found one more that probably is for homeless. Mitigating. Numbers 12, the navigator position from Good Neighbor. I reread it, and the primary purpose was to prevent homelessness. But it's not housing.
Right.
So, yeah. So maybe it just it can stand the general impacts of the sun.
So do you want to start with the water projects?
Yeah.
The city water project? Sure. So when I looked at the remaining 3 Collins ones, the total combined is 707,500 is what I came up with. And I didn't see anywhere in there where there was like a prioritization. You know, if you were to fund 2 of the 4 projects that we submitted,
I think that number 6 was finishing the sewer lining was particularly a DNR issue. And I was going to look back at that and see if
Actually, I think both 5 and 6 were of Collins.
it was 5 as much as DNR is 6.
what I had on that sheet was from Kimberly's research or whatever was 5, 6, 10, 15, and 20 were kind of for, I think those were kind of the priority areas. And I think she said was number 31, which was Roland. Definitely agree, but I think she thought at least the main looping, that if you could do more, great, but at least the main looping was in her, was in her message, or her email to us.
Yeah, the Cambridge and Slater projects were the two most urgent.
Let's talk about zeroing for a minute.
Okay.
Sandra, do you want to kind of update us on what you heard from zeroing yesterday?
Basically, they did not answer the question which they were asked about the engineering study, how long it would take. And they did not provide any information back on that. The question was, if the board decides to approve funding for the engineering study, how soon do you believe it could be completed? And we're told, depending on the results of the study, additional funding may be considered, providing funding is still available. When they responded, they noted that that was no longer their priority. They said, we have recently discovered a much more important project that we need to focus on. We've discovered, and they went on in detail about that particular project. And then at the end of it, said that it would cost roughly $200,000 and the city's ARPA funds were going to be used for sanitary sewer repairs. So it sounded like they are abandoning that other project and want to replace it with this new project that they said they need to focus on. However, I believe we've been telling applicants who are interested in doing something like that, that the board was making a decision on the application that was before them.
Mhm.
And if they decide to open it up later, they will be notified. I have not responded to Zero.
I think an important question would be if, since they found this other project, are they withdrawing their application, their original application? I think you're right. We need to be consistent about people change their projects. I mean, I totally understand finding something, discovering something that you feel is more pressing.
Well, here's one of my concerns. Yes, they've got a lot of need. They've got, was it? Now I'm lost. Oh, I got too many documents open. 1.7 million, is that right?
Almost 1.8.
They've got a lot of need. 1.8, they just discovered something else, it's 200,000. And they want us to take all that and put that aside and have us do the 200,000. I'm a little concerned. I think they could, I don't know, it seems to me they could utilize some engineering help in prioritizing. I think they've got a whole lot there, and it sure would be good if the county could help them. So I'm not for just saying scrap it. I'm almost saying consider it. Can you go ahead and do the engineering? They'll help you prioritize. And if we have money later, then we'd be willing to consider what your highest priority is. But to just say, no to them right now. I'm a little concerned about that.
I put a question mark, but I kind of identified ones that under wastewater to fund myself or whatever. I put a question mark by that one. I agree with the engineering, that was part of their application, was to do that, was just to do that. I understand they've got other pressing needs, but I'm sure other agencies too that have applied may have other pressing needs. So I'm not open to saying, okay, let's divert to this particular situation, even though how dire it is a grant process to follow the grant guidelines. I think following up with them and saying, hey, I recognize that you have this other need. You applied for funds for this. Would you like the funds for engineering, and when could that get done? And if they come back and say, absolutely no, again, I know you've asked them, Sandra, but I think if we come back and say, hey, we're not looking at your other avenue here, that's not what your grant is, or do you still want that or not? That will help make some decision there. Then it's on them to say, nope, we're not going to do that. We're just going to focus here. We're withdrawing altogether, or
Right. Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Let's give them the option. The engineering was part of their original application, might help them sort stuff out. Otherwise, yeah, we can't accept that bigger revision at this point.
And you want it posed as the board to consider it, correct? Because you haven't made any
right,
decisions.
right,
Consider it,
right, right,
yes.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
I just, sometimes you need to add that, consider,
Mhm.
so they don't think that they
That's
automatically do
right,
that.
right, right.
Yeah.
But you make a good point, and I appreciate you doing that, because it makes me feel a little squeamish, because I know there's a lot of need. It's zeroing in all the communities, so I like taking this route.
Let me to just kind of let you know what I kind of circled.
That would be
under
great.
that. So I circled as to support, or, and I can give my reasons, under infrastructure wastewater, where, excuse me, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20, so kind of my for sures. I had a question mark with number 18. And number 31, I wanted to, but I was looking at least the, as Kimberly kind of recommended, the looping, which was about 170,000. But not sure how that all connects with, because she had said if they could at least do the looping, and if you have money to do the whole project. I didn't do number 8 of Collins because it's 80% that they've already paid on it, and they're continuing to, it's not debt repayment, but they're just kind of fixing as they go. So I just kind of took that out of the mix. And then zeroing, that was mine, and we just had a conversation on that. And so I just had a question mark, and if they do engineering, I wasn't sure how much that would potentially be for engineering cost.
I had 5 and 6 as well. I also had 10 for Cambridge. I had Story City. I saw the value there. I had 500,000 for Huxley, and I had Slater. So I had Story City and half of the Huxley in addition.
Okay,
And I actually had the storm sewer on Roland.
you did the whole thing on Roland?
I did the storm sewer, but not the loop.
Okay.
I just had questions about Collins as far as what was a priority. And then I had 10, 15, 20, 31, which is Roland. And I just let the whole project in. I just left the whole thing on. And then Huxley, I wasn't sure as far, I mean, yes to fund, but I didn't put down a specific amount.
don't. I'm trying to capture everything. So what did you have for 20?
For 20, I funded it all. I just kind of did a calculation too. If you're looking at you're looking at roll in the storm, the stormwater was about 900,000.
It's 830,
830.
and the movement was 170.
Next was a full Monday, checks, whatever. And Lisa, still on 18, you still have a question mark. Captured that right?
Oh, yeah, I just, yeah, because it was listed on kind of Kimberly's thing. It wasn't I'm sure there's a need. I'm not opposed to funding it or funding part of it. It was just that she identified other ones that were more of a priority than that one. That was my only reason for putting your question mark there.
Yeah, that was why I was like, yes. But
Which one?
Huxley.
Huxley's, number 18.
And the reason I did have on Huxley was I thought, we're looking at some of the other communities, and they're not growing as much as Huxley. And I think a lot of what Huxley's asking for there is because of growth. And they have some revenues coming in because of that growth. And I also wondered if they had looked at cost of developer costs. in that. So I went some ways, but not all the way to the middle.
Yep, no, I perfectly reasonable. But
So it sounds like we're all in agreement on the 5 and 6 for Collins. And Cambridge.
Yes.
So I added,
And Story City.
I added Story. Because I thought it was a good project.
Yeah,
I think
I
we're,
agree
we all,
too.
I think we're all on the same page with story.
And I would also say, and the reason I looked at Roland is also thinking about Story City and Roland both in terms of headwaters. Discussed a lot of those are both very important communities in terms, not others aren't, but in terms of water. So there's just going to be a question mark that might be mentioned.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so looking at Kimberly's comments on Roland. And I'm open to either way or all of it for them. She had said Roland specifically mentioned using dead ends can produce unstable water quality, and I would be in our construction standards require it and to be minimum. I think that's why I went with.
We'll do that, okay? So, Terry, I'm sorry, I don't have to. You're welcome. Okay, all right. Bye-bye. I really wasn't expecting.
Yourself. Yeah, thank you.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
She must not be on the webinar.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, Kimberly said she would prioritize the water moving project. I think it's what you just. you
Right,
just
right,
said.
was what I was trying to,
Um,
but then she does the one thing she goes, I'm not about is why they mentioned flood in pond water when they're talking about drinking water distribution.
Yeah, let me go look at it.
Yeah. And maybe that's because that's part of that when they talk about the flood pond water, normal common storm water, that's probably the storm sewer upgrade portion of the application.
stormwater. Apparently, there are many intakes that do not drain or drain very slowly, and city hall issues calls, ponding roads unsafe. Yeah, I see what she's saying. So their storm sewers are great, but they don't have a problem. It sounds like with discharging them into the sewer. I know what to do.
You want to just do one of it? The whole
No.
thing?
Bishops understand.
We can also come back to that too, if we want to look. I just kind of added up, and Leanne, you probably got it too, but if I add up the 5, 6, 10, 15, 18 at 500,000, 20, and then we do 1 million for number 31, because that was their total ask, I come up with a total of 3,070,000. That's not including any engineering fees for hearing if they want to pursue that or not. But if we do that total, right?
3,070,000.
3,070,000.
He doesn't have the
500,000 there.
Yeah, you gotta have the 500,000 right there for 18. There. You know, if you want to come back and revisit that, we can kind of just, begin to highlight it and say, okay, we want to circle back whether we want that amount.
Yeah, I think that's a
For
good
Roland,
idea.
not for Huxley.
Oh, my glasses, I can't. Oh, it's so much.
You've got Huck's land at 500,000, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm comfortable with 500,000 there too.
I'll take a circle back to that. I don't want to push anyone along. I'm just
Yep.
saying if we're not 100% sure, we can.
Yep.
Think about it as we get along the way and see where we kind of
Yeah.
end up. And then if we want to, we can make any final adjustments at the very end as well.
I think that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
I do too. Infrastructure, project uplift and new affordable housing subdivision.
I thought I understood this and then I read it again. And here was my concern. At first, it sounds like they're going to be there's 250 homes in one place and 400 in another. And I was trying to figure out if this money would go to 10%. They said they could do 10%, but I couldn't figure out if it was the 250 homes or a total of 400.
Which one are you referring to, Linda?
Project up.
Okay, it's like that, okay.
It's number 2. and pull it up and- I didn't print it out. So it's gonna be hard to find. Because I've got other money there. Okay, Story County housing study shows only 250, so it's there. Are you working on partnership or collaboration with other entities? Nevada's been fortunate to receive $993 in ARPA funds. These rescue funds will all be directed towards funding construction of the lift station. Serve the north side of the community, including the possibility of 150 acres of new residential housing units, equivalent to approximately 400 houses. Budget. No. I'm just not sure exactly what we're purchasing here.
Okay, so I figured it's still part of their water, their infrastructure there. It's just the gap that they have. They're putting all their money towards this project and they have a gap of 120,000 and they're just asking, they're asking us to fund the rest of their project.
And what I was trying to figure out is the project is for low and moderate income housing, or is it for all the housing? There's other housing involved too.
I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix.
Yeah, we don't know.
Well,
Right, but I-
they do say in there the purpose of the fund. In order to be made, low to moderate income housing will be targeted for the development of new housing. The city of Nevada is buying down 10% of the lots to increase affordability of residents in that income bracket. The station you're installing is that it's estimated of whatever. So I think that they are doing a percentage that will go towards low to moderate income housing.
But the main project is infrastructure.
Right, right.
I marked it to fully fund.
I do too. It's the same thing with number 27. That's the infrastructure of that. That color was-
I struggled a little bit more with that one because there's no existing housing there. I wasn't sure if that was a problem. Completely new area, whereas the Nevada one is going to service existing homes and future development. and I don't know.
I forget that this was for future development. They have the land already. They need the infrastructure.
Colo is for future development.
Yeah,
That's
future
future
development,
development
future development. Yeah. Was it 10 or 12? But more than- I can't, I'm just trying to look up the number of homes, and they're putting their funds to help fund the project.
See, there's three things that we're looking at in these applications, so it's interesting. We're looking at affordable housing. We're looking at crumbling infrastructure, let's put it that way, old infrastructure that needs to be redone for water quality. And we're looking at new infrastructure that needs to be done for development purposes. And I'm, despite the fact I said $500,000 for Huxley, we were up there, when they were doing that earlier, I really think that what we should be concentrating on are affordable housing and water quality issues. I
Crazy, this is not, I guess I'm looking at, they're proposing lots to be sold.
yeah, I think Colo is affordable.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think to me, it's hitting one of those two is important. And I think that's really important. Yes, Colo is saying this is low and moderate. Proposed lots sold 50 to 20,000. Lot proceeds will be carried over to future housing projects. They said that in their application. So I, you know. Let me go back. Talk about my assumption. Is there anything in the water sewer broadband infrastructure that would preclude any new development for any reason?
I was not able to find it.
Okay.
Under the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, categories of eligible projects include construction of publicly owned treatment works. It doesn't say. Works is being.
Then, then I think we're probably, then let me back up. Then. I think if that's the case, I think we're probably okay in looking at all of these. It's just our own preferences from that.
So for me, I funded both, number 2 and 27.
I have both of them also. I was just raising the question.
Yeah, let's move on. I'm not 100% there yet.
Okay.
Two broadband Gilbert and the ICS Technologies. I haven't put anything for either of them yet, and my only reason being is the Gilbert one, I thought Amelia said she was still checking, that they didn't think it met the speed.
Yeah, I think she
So-
said it didn't.
It didn't, so then that would be 0, and then the Heather Glenn ICS one. I don't remember if you were getting information or if it was Amelia. I honestly cannot remember if like Metronet was coming in or someone else that would be a competition that we shouldn't be entering. Shouldn't be entering in, so I haven't put anything under those
And I was
areas.
thinking you were looking at that, were you?
Marcus and I both were. I contacted them.
So we just need
I
to
don't have an answer
come
yet.
back around and with Marcus and find out what he found out.
And I didn't have anything on those either for the same reason.
Yeah, I pulled the Gilbert one off.
So then it's still a potential.
So then moving on to negative economic impacts.
Sure, yeah, well, this is the area a number of them that I'd like to fund and to how much that I wasn't sure on. For the number 13, I put down about 757,000, which is about half that. Kind of relooking at their program. Where I felt like it kind of fit with what we were doing. That's what I did there. I think a lot was for extra staffing, and that's what I kind of took out, and that's how I kind of came up with my number there. I still had question mark on access in the bridge home, mainly on, I like their projects, potential levels, because I knew we were getting some additional information on those. I put to fund number 30 and fund number 32. Although number 32, I did put a question mark. I had actually put it at 360,000 versus 470. I just wasn't sure what the 360 was without that recruitment stipend, just because I couldn't, it's not that I don't like it, I was just trying to figure out how do you do that and make sure it's going towards the intent that they have in the
The
application.
administration of that.
Right. That was, although that would be on them, not so much on us, but that was just my notation there. So it wasn't a, hey, I don't like that, it was just kind of my notation.
You said 350 there or 360?
I did 360, because I think that's what added out when I took out the stipend.
It would be just 250 for the home for Iowa and 110 for the first time buyers.
Yeah,
I put the full 470 in. I guess it might be kind of topical, but I was just thinking about where we are right now with labor shortages and lower income people that we need in support positions. So I decided they probably have an idea how they would do it. If we have some concerns, we could look at, we could put it in our acceptance, but I did the full amount there. I did number 30, the new studio apartments. And I think I will do the full funding on the YSS with rapid rehousing. I think it's a really huge issue. I think putting youth into a program with wraparound support services has a lot of benefits for the future. I think a lot about the foster kids aging out and what they're dealing with. I just think that program is very much worth funding. It's got a little bit of money in it that I'm not maybe crazy about. I don't know where the extra administrative costs are. I wish we'd ask people why they needed to include administrative costs in their proposals. But I'm looking at that and I think it's one that gives back, gives back a lot in terms of what's going on with kids these days and the extra support it can give kids who are in trouble. I also, the access proposal calls for renting 2 additional apartments for shelter and a long-term hotel stay and some staff time. If they're gonna have additional units, they probably do need the additional staff time. It's something that can be done for a housing need that can be done quickly, which is the same thing with the YSS. Because they're both staffed to do it, there's just an expansion. So I think I would put in the access. I have questions about the 8-plex that I have not gotten answered yet. I still would like to know more information about the 8-plex that the Bridge Home wants to purchase. I thought it was already being used for affordable housing. Do you have information, Sandra?
No, we didn't send out that list of questions that we were starting. It was my understanding that we were going to send that out if the board decides, okay, we're at that point where we're about ready to make the decision to fund. We need these other questions answered. So I haven't sent those out.
It seems like if we're looking at things that can be done quickly to really get housing to people. That's why I recommend access and YSS, because those are my question on the Bridge Home, it seems like acquiring the land, doing all of that is very long range. It depends upon them, something ever coming out of that depends on them raising a whole lot of money. So it's not in terms of doing something with ARPA funds, it's going to bring in the benefit, an immediate benefit on housing. I don't see that, but the 8-plex is the one that I don't understand. Because I had thought, maybe I am wrong, and I've asked several people and nobody knows, I had thought it was already being used for affordable housing. If it is, then it's not an addition of housing resources. But we have to know why it's being proposed at the Bridge Home buyer. So that's my question in order to consider that. Because it's somehow that it's going to be lost. It is affordable housing, it's going to be lost for it if it's not purchased, or if I'm not understanding what it is. I need more information, and I think we all do. So,
And I think we, the information that we were able to gather was that purchasing of the land is not something that we want to do with ARPA funds. I recommended that we do not do that.
Right, all the information we kept getting from NACO was, it's unclear, I mean, there isn't a specific you can or cannot, but the information we got was, if it's private, it's not really recommended or whatever to do. And then they also fall under, if they were to sell that land, then they have to fall under the federal procurement requirements to go through on it. So we just kind of made that decision of land acquisition. No, we're not gonna do, and we didn't do that with the internal apps that we had as well.
So really, the only part of the Bridge Homes application is the 8-plex, is what's
and the purchase
Still up
price
for
model
discussion.
is listed together would be $746,000. I guess I'd also have the question if they would have any, if they're making a case to purchase it, if they would have any cash put towards that, or if they're asking them. So the rest of the list doesn't need to go, it's just the questions about the 8-plex. Is that what everybody's thinking?
Yeah.
I don't understand your question, but
see that, like, I'm just, and I'm fine, I can go with the kind of the full amount for YSS. I just kind of look back there, this is separate from their salary, but admin expense is, that's 15% of their budget, but they're requesting, I expect to go admin expense, and then their salaries, and then benefits that have in there too, so just, again, it was just an area that I just.
What was the number you had?
But I'm happy to go up from my number two. I had 757. And so again, I think what I did is I took out the admin expense and the staff salary benefits in there. That doesn't mean that you couldn't have that in there. Because I get it. You have a program you want to do, you need the staff to be able to do the program.
You need the staff for the wraparound services.
Right.
Whether you need additional administrative staff is the question, or are they just saying, we're gonna take all of our administrative staff and now we're gonna spread.
Right.
And that, we didn't ask that question very well.
Right,
I looked at that administrative question, I thought, were we asking about this budget, the ARPA budget? Were we asking about their total budget? And you can read it either way.
Right.
And we didn't ask for any justification of the administrative expense.
Right.
They also had $199,377 for an office.
Yeah, that's the admin expense they got.
That's the admin expense.
Yeah, so that's where I was like, wow.
Well, let's take it down to, if you take out 200,000, we've got $1,000,001.
Do that.
Want to do that? 9,1 even.
So you're saying 1,100,000? Okay.
Let's talk a little more about the access.
Yeah.
And what I cleaned out of it was 2 apartments and 1 long-term hotel stay and staff. And it was was for 5 years. That's the other thing. Sometimes it's not clear, you have to read to figure out how many years.
On their budget, they do show this each fiscal year.
I do.
Yeah, if you look at their budget. they-
Oh,
Ending in December
22,
2026.
23, okay, good. Good for them.
And I don't think it's just one hotel room.
The short-term hotels and long-term hotel.
Yeah, I took it from the assumption is, folks that need it for a couple days and some that may need it for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Until they get other things in order. You're not only looking at people that are homeless, they've got that added crisis of potentially that domestic situation going on as well. So that may just take some longer time to navigate safety. Yeah, they got the safety concern as well.
Yeah, I think I got the one long-term from the narrative someplace, but what they've got is like a real mix of solutions, which is what you need.
Right.
Apartment rent, short-term, long-term. I think that salary and benefits is 30,000. So they're talking about, and cash 47,000 total. What are their other cash is?
I think that's their federal funding. Their dollar funding. which they're losing. Like, they're all domestic programs are just losing tons of money. All of their funding is disappearing because the Violence Against Women Act is not renewed. I had down the fully fund access and YSS. But I'm also comfortable with the reduction for YSS. Also, fully funding 30 and 32. Although I have some of the same questions about what administratively, how's that gonna work? And I guess another question I have just for the group is we can hammer out the details in contracts, right? So even if we say we're going to fully fund this project, if we get into it and it's like, we're not really comfortable with that piece, what does that look like? Because I've never been here before. So if we, in walking through the contract, find something that we don't think is an appropriate use of ARPA funds, are we locked into that amount that we granted? Like, if we were doing that today, would we be locked into that amount today, or is there still some flexibility in there?
Did that again? Sorry, I don't understand your question.
So like with the rapid rehousing program, if we were to vote, like we're in a meeting, an actual meeting, and vote today to fully fund it, and then we get into the contract part, and something pops up that we're like, that's really not an appropriate use of ARPA funds. We do not want to fund that administrative piece. Are we locked into the amount that we are agreeing to fund now?
Well, we're not voting.
I know, no, hypothetically, if we were.
I think if you do vote to give them that money, they're gonna count on having that money. You probably have to have something to say you're voting like up to a certain amount, or separating it out, saying something of, we'll support, fully fund the 360,000 portion, that other portion. I don't know. I mean, it's you can fund it and they do it administratively based on your contract for how you're reporting it. They would have to figure that out to make sure that folks are using it on housing if we're getting those reporting back. And that to me, again, I'm looking at it as if I was the administrator. That was my reason for taking that out. I 100% agree that it's probably needed, and that's why, it's like I have it there, but then I had like in parentheses the 360, because it was like, oh, I like the whole amount. I'm just trying to figure out, is that going to cause a problem for them, but also cause a problem for us to get the data, the information that we need. That was my only thing.
Right. No, and that makes, that wasn't my question is not a question about your judgment
Sure.
at all. Just trying to understand the process to make sure. I feel uncomfortable making a decision to partially fund or reduce funding, not knowing if that's going to prevent a project from moving forward at all, just because I've never taken on a project like that before. So yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I understand the full process.
The board may need to cover some of that in the contract, because there are other things that could come up, once you approve this and, they start their project, unforeseen issues could come up that nobody has control over. And then what? As much as you can, I think that needs to be addressed in the contract.
Yeah, that it needs to be used towards, we lay out what was designated or identified in their application that was for, and that in the contract reporting based on this will be, yeah, something, that's how you're going to make that determination or get it. I think that's how I've heard you say, Sarah.
Well, that the contract.
Yeah,
needs
yeah,
to
yeah.
address, yeah.
That's a cut. So in our meeting, when we go to approve projects, would we be saying we're voting to approve up to this amount? And then work those details out in the contract?
I think we, you know, I'm thinking about this well. I think we really need to be, you know, sure of what we're funding. We have to let them know ahead of time. If we've got huge reservations or some significant reservation, then we should figure it out now and ask them. If we're, at the same time, I would say, I don't want to get into really micromanaging this, and some of it will just have to have some faith in people that they need the money that they're asking for.
Right.
But I just thought of two things that are going to be important. One is that our motion has to be, whatever we do as a motion on approving them, has to say this amount is dependent upon a mutually agreed contract being negotiated. Okay, it's not just you've got this money.
Right.
We've got a negotiated contract.
Thank
So,
you.
and I'm not necessarily talking about dollar amounts there, but I'm talking about conditions. We need to do that. Second thing I was thinking, and I was going to bring it up sometime during this conversation, I just will bring it up now. I was cognizant when I was going through these again of us talking about the fact that once we put that money out there for a project, we can't get it back if they don't use it all. I mean, we can't get it back to reallocate, is that correct?
We can't allocate after December 2024.
Can I, okay, after the 2024.
Right.
But we could before that.
Yes.
Yes,
And the
Yeah.
contract should cover that. The contract, in my view, needs to do some heavy lifting because
Yes.
there are so many things out of the board's control. And once you release that money, there has to be strings on it because, you know, there are going to be audits. And, you know, the county is held responsible for following treasury guidelines that are so complicated. I mean, and you're sub-allocating this money,
Right,
but still responsible for whatever is done with the money.
right.
and
So,
I believe income
Contract has
received
work to do.
over $750,000 is subject to a single audit.
Correct.
They haven't been subject to it before, they would be subject to it.
So that'd be a contract issue then. Not, I was thinking we have to hold some money back and that was messy and I was hoping we wouldn't have to, but if we can say we need to know prior to December 2024 what your anticipated expenses are. Because if you're not going to spend it all, you're not anticipating spending it all, you better return some to us and have to be way before December 24 for us to reallocate.
Well, it's my understanding too that you're probably going to want them to do periodic reports.
Yes.
Whoever is in charge of all of this will also be doing periodic reports and probably needs to report to the board if they're finding that, you know, one of the recipients or multiple recipients are not following the contract, not meeting the milestones. Some of that money will probably need to be clawed back at that time.
Well, and I'm not, we're not gonna just say, here's $1.1 million now. No,
Right.
it's gonna be drawn down. It's not gonna be all up front. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the contract detail. It might, it's probably going to be specific to each project,
Right.
what the schedule
Right.
is, and when they need them. So we might want to ask them to present at some point
Oh, for sure.
something about when are you anticipating needing money? Yeah, the contract's kind of just heavy lift, because the workforce, when we gave some money ahead of time to kind of get started, and then they had to kind of report and then cost more money. So it didn't all go out at once, but you gave them some money to start out with. So, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of. Did we answer-
I think you answered, yes, thank you.
Did we go around your question enough that you
Yeah,
feel comfortable
yeah.
with it?
Yeah, yes, thank you, I appreciate.
And I really appreciated Lindy's, you referencing the mutually agreed upon contract.
Uh-huh.
Portion
Yeah.
of it, that kind of helped us out in there.
Yeah.
So it's looking like this portion we're at, kind of agreed upon, it's at 2,191,000. Linda, did you say the 8+, and I know we're still doing, have questions or whatever, was 746,000?
The purchase price plus the remodel they asked for was 746.
Okay.
And I added a little extra for like closing costs and stuff. So I actually put that at 756.
That makes sense.
Just because there's always stuff.
But we still want to have some more information.
Yes.
before- Okay,
Absolutely, I agree.
plus 10,000 closed. Okay.
Right, so I just put it for as my notation, so that will bring it actually up there. So with that 2,191,100. Plus 756. Knowing that we're not sure, yet we have some questions yet on the bridge, and just for me, so I'm looking at, that would put that category potentially at 2,947,100. If you add in the 8 flex or whatever, otherwise it's right now at the 2,191,100. And I do that as we get to the end to figure out where we're at, to make sure we haven't gone over the total amount of money that we have. So
I just put it in my spreadsheet. So I can make that what that accounted for.
I appreciate you doing that as we're going along. Yeah, it's helpful. Two point nine.
Oh, if I did the total, yeah, 2,947,100, if I included that 756, but yeah, that was, yeah, I like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had kind of an issue here that these three were all good, but they're overlapping. Collins is proposing 3 people in Collins. Some meals, I can't remember how many. Veda Food at First is proposing evening meals 2 times a week in Eastern Story County, which includes Collins. And then they program to get clean food for food pantries. And then you get to United Way, and they're talking about emergency food for all the food pantries in Story County. So there's some significant overlap there. And I don't know how.
Well.
I would suggest that the food need does not seem to decrease, so. I think that I had them down as fully funding them all, but asking to work together to eliminate any redundancies and increase efficiency.
So I took the Collins one down.
I did.
Well, we had the notation, the need to separate the food from utility relief.
The water bills.
Right, so
Okay.
I took that down to the 54,400.
Okay,
And then I left the other two. I mean, I know that food insecurity is great. I know that there are a number of people utilizing those food pantries. A larger amount than you probably know that are attending like Food at First. So I know that that was a great thing. So that's where I funded them all, but I just reduced the Collins one to take out that utility
and
portion.
it gets to 282,660.
Correct.
Oh, the answer had me. Let's just raise the hand. I lose.
Yeah, I want to say thank you.
Yeah, it's just the star notations that we had on there that we need to
Yeah,
separate
and-
that out.
Yeah, they were talking about water bills. If we're funding 2 of the 3 water projects in Collins, and one of them is reducing the leakage rate, that's gonna take water bills down quite a bit.
Right.
already. So I can go with taking that out. And just calling it a food. And that would be working together to eliminate redundancy and increase efficiency. I think they want to do that anyway, because everybody wants to make food go as far as possible
Right.
there. But we could ask them to report back to us in the contracts about how they're doing with that.
Are we comfortable with food then? The voice on the other two? With that,
I am, I mean,
childcare.
I had questions about the versus stuff. United Way, we're doing all, covers all the nonprofits. County. On the for-profit. For-profit.
It is a for-profit, but we didn't say for-profits couldn't apply. And it's pay their employees more so that they can retain those employees. I went back and forth on that because it's not a nonprofit, but
Did they say how many employees they have?
there. We currently have roughly 30 full-time staff.
30 staff. Yeah. So 30 staff. Looking at 250,000. And United Way's proposal was saying there were 100 staff. 100 FTEs was there. And that's 520. 300, and so it's 3 times the number of employees, and also getting the
but I think you might be comparing apples to oranges.
might be $10,000.
So the whistle stop is strictly to increase the amount of people's paycheck. Get the United Way one. United Way is more like building a coalition and recruitment and retention. I'm remembering
What was the number again?
Yeah, they were putting
right.
480,000 towards recruitment and retention. Did a large portion towards marketing. I thought we asked a question on that. I have to find that back. And then they did have a percentage, but out of their full $551,000, or 521,000 was asked, they put 5,000 towards personnel staff. So a small percentage for staff, probably to help coordinate the coordination of the program.
280,000 thousand was recruitment and retention.
Right.
Only 36 for marketing, so the bulk of it. So this apples and oranges, 480,000 divided by 100 FTEs is 48,000 a person. 50,000 divided by 30 FTEs. $8,300. Close to 4,800. I don't know what the salaries are now, so it's hard to tell. It's kind of an apples and oranges, but it seems like there's a lot more coming through the United way.
Um, I think the one question I had too with the, I like their proposal. I like what they're doing. Childcare need is huge. So that wasn't the issue, and the fact that they're for-profit versus nonprofit wasn't necessarily the issue for me. They just happened to be the one that took advantage and applied for it. So that's how I kind of looked at it there. I'm assuming they will figure out that if they're putting money to potentially increase salaries, not just for like a retention thing is, once that money's gone, they'll have to figure out, or it's just a one-time, that's where I just have to struggle with. This is a one-time bump, and then it's gonna be like, oh, sorry, you're out now. That was the thing I had to struggle with their application.
You know, when I talked to Hamilton County folks, the Childcare Coalition up there, their contention was, they were doing this kind of a thing, their contention was that we're not able to operate at full capacity right now because we don't have the staff. And when we get operating back at full capacity, our profit margin will be better.
Sure.
Our economic situation, our budget will look a lot better, and we should be able to maintain. Now, I don't know if that's what's in their minds, but that was when the Hamilton County Child Care Coalition was working on this. That was their thought.
And I believe they say that in their application, was the stop, that once they're able to serve more families. This is an ongoing project that will allow us to enroll more children in our programs, which will in turn help to fund these wages after the funding has been exhausted. I don't know.
I was just gonna say, I could go with funding board.
I could go funding both too. That was just my one concern is how they do it. They've got that figured out.
Sure. So,
Right.
I kept down with my phone.
$71,300.
Yeah, okay. Next is negative economic impacts. Miscellaneous.
I had, for the Boys and Girls Club, I took that down to about 255,000. And I did it for, I redid their application and what they're trying to do. So I did it for their kitchen and their fiber and their tech upgrades. Which I was correlating, and kind of going back to our conversation with David Farmer and what they were doing with a public project, is they talked about more space for their kitchen. You know, they need more space in there and they could be able to do some of their cooking and other things with the space. And that they do have students that come and do their schoolwork there and having their technology, their fiber and technology upgraded. I didn't do for paying for, what was it, a year of their program, but that was how I rationalized the amount that I.
You did the infrastructure stuff and not the academic support.
For what, right, well, again, I was connecting it to COVID.
Understand that.
Yes, is what I was doing. And I think part of it is because when they talk about the program coordinator, but then they also talk about the program coordinator, like helping with fundraising. So that's where I was. Yeah, so I did the install. I didn't do the IT services for 4 years. I'd be open. I did the kitchen service, the fiber, and the tech upgrades. Could do the IT services for 4 years. I just didn't do the program personnel.
Can I read a paragraph to you?
Sure.
Under additional information, and I just found this. We're in the early phases of exploring a potential facility expansion at our Ames location. Kitchen remodel could be a part of that project as well as other essential needs to be addressed. If the expansion project were to come to fruition, the funds from the grant for the kitchen project would be applied. If the project were not to happen, we would still complete a remodel of our kitchen with grant funds. They're in early stages of exploring a potential facility. That's a long-range kind of thing, perhaps. Are they going to know by December 2024 if they're going to do the kitchen remodel? When are they going to know whether they're going to do the kitchen remodel, or whether they're going to put this money towards a project, and when would they use the money if they were putting it towards part of a bigger project? That gave me a little bit of pause about the kitchen remodel.
Sure, sure.
And I just found it, I would have asked the question before, but when I was going through, every time you go through, you find something else, and I found that, and I thought, ooh, how does that fit with the timelines?
Yeah, I pulled the kitchen remodel out. And just went with funding the rest of it. 275,000 is what I landed on. For the fiber and the program personnel for the next 4 years and the IT services. So everything except the service kitchen.
Yeah.
It sounded like they may have some options for the kitchen later.
They have some
Essentially.
uncertainty about which way they go with that money, which would.
Well, then if they're looking at doing a remodel, then I guess the question would be, then with the IT, is would that change their direction with the IT as well? Like,
It's bringing probably fiber to the door,
sure,
and that probably would. But how much of a footprint do they have? They had to build up that land.
right, right. But
Yeah. So assuming that, we don't know. I'm not comfortable with the kitchen now. I could go either way on the fiber. I like the academic support.
Yeah, they do a lot of work with kids. I think that upgrading their internet is. a big
Yeah,
deal.
I agree with the upgrade on the internet.
I would be for going to 275 and just explaining to them why we didn't want to, that the model seemed to be premature, if it was, another building lot. So we might be open for it in the future. There's no plans.
I could do that. We'll do 275. Keep this in.
Yes,
Okay.
So for fiber, for all the fiber stuff and the program.
yeah, it's just pulling the kitchen out. And funding the rest. Because the IT services, 45,000 over 4 years, so you're not talking about hiring a full-time IT person to be available. And paying program personnel for 4 years.
Our current, this is an ongoing project. Our current strategies for ongoing program support, including adding a dedicated development person to our team. This individual will assist with fundraising for our ongoing operations. So is that different than the program,
I think so.
than the program personnel that they're listing?
That's how I read that, was that this question was asking how you're going to support what you're doing now moving forward, and they're just saying, we need to add an additional development person, and that person's going to help with fundraising.
But I think that's where I got was development and that personnel person saying.
That's a good question.
And so you're both saying no, you're reading it differently. So then that's. Navigator. I was unclear, we have down for 104.87, but I thought I saw their application, or maybe I had something wrong in an old page that said 148,357. And I might have something wrong that I looked at before.
$104,857.
It is what it's for. Okay, I must have something that was an old sheet that was inputted incorrectly and.
Yeah.
Is that the total ARPA ask? I think their total ARPA ask is 148,357. Is that what you got?
That's what I said, but they put
Yeah.
down here, it says requested Story County ARPA funding amount
It's
104,857.
different than the narrative and the budget.
Yeah, the budget, the original number that I told you, that includes their cash and in-kind matches. So the total for the project is,
Yeah, they do have you look on page. Here, the project information page, so where it says project name, project, whatever, requested Story County ARPA funding amount is 104,857. That's where I was confused, because their budget was a little different, but they were specifically saying that's the amount that they were
yeah,
asking. That's because
There's
we had on our
something-
sheets, but then I saw the budget was 148.
Look at that budget.
yeah.
There's something very strange about it because your total column, she's got, I think they reversed the
Subtracted,
columns.
yeah. Uh-huh.
I think they reversed the columns. I think the 148 is their total budget minus the 43 cash.
Oh, right, so the 104.
104, yeah, she, whoever did this somehow must have reversed the columns.
Right, so the total ask is the 104,857.
I think we can assume that.
Yeah. That's, I, yeah.
I don't know how else.
I think that that's what they stated above, that's where I found
Yes.
this, but then looking below, I think you're probably right, they just switched it around.
So they're looking at somebody just to generally help folks navigate all of the resources that Story County has.
And I think to help be an intermediary between renters and landlords.
Negotiate with landlords. Because the primary focus is homelessness prevention. Right.
The way community services described it, they said they saw the proposal as focusing more on non-legal mediation efforts with landlords, which they don't see community services taking on.
So nobody else is doing it.
They also talk about being mentors and other tasks that community services that they didn't expect to do.
Sustainability.
Now continuing to write grants. Request funding from the Office of State Court Administration, which is in some funding right now.
See if we could make this a part-time position, that if they did not receive 100% funding. They said they'd make it a part-time position with OSCA funds and try to get funding through asset private donors and do a search for grants. So I wouldn't doubt, even if we did fund, since it's temporary, that they might come to asset later if they think that that's really a useful position and quite frankly, we'd have asset team would have some information to know if it was worth an additional fund. Not asset doesn't get a lot of funding, of course, anyway, but yeah, I just because they're not seeing this as a temporary thing, the people go away doesn't mean I don't think it's a good. And sometimes you do the good you can at a certain time and see what happens later. I could go.
I'm fine with it too.
Yeah, but I had fully funded.
Cultivating careers.
We saw some curriculum at some point that was supposed to get people ready for the DMAC training, but that was through the DMAC program itself and it was pretty short, pretty brief.
Right. So
it seems like this is something that for folks who just really aren't ready for even education right now, that this is, and I've not seen what their program looks like, but
I have it here. I can pass it around. I don't have extra copies, but
maybe I did see it. Thank you. Did you have any thoughts about it, Sandra?
It sounded like a good program. They also sound like they're working with a different audience than maybe the chamber is, because they may be working with some people who have not held down jobs before, and so they're doing a lot of preparation, providing additional tools to help them be successful on the job. That's the way I view it.
They're providing a lot of support services and at the same time teaching a lot of soft skills. Getting some people who aren't ready for the DMAC program to a position where they may very well be. I mean,
I like it.
yeah, I think from what I've read about the program, I think it has nothing but positive impacts on the people that enroll, that are able to take a chance.
Yeah, it's a situation where I certainly don't think it can hurt to prepare people who may not have been in the workplace. Taking that on.
They only asked for 2 years of funding, is that correct? I think it was. The way I got the budget was they had some money to. They had some funds for 5 people, and this would be an additional 10. Of course, $5,000 a person times 10 individuals times 2 years. That's how they got the 100,000. I assume there's a budget behind that for their.
Yeah. The proposal is to provide funding to train 20 of 30 individuals over a 2-year period.
And I think they're only asking for 2 years because they believe it's going to be successful. And that they're going to be able to,
Find some of the monies.
yeah.
I just find the program, I just think it's another avenue to help prepare people for the workforce.
And I think a lot about the kids who the pandemic has really interrupted the normal progression of getting out of school and getting into education or the workforce, and a year of, for some kids of online and no socialization. I mean, this is online, but it's dealing with skills.
And I don't think it's directed just at youth. I mean, I think it's
Anybody?
actually more directed at adults.
Oh, it is, okay.
But not that they would turn an 18-year-old away, but I think they work with all age, specifically people who really struggle to hold a job or, are more likely to be unhoused. It's supporting a large variety.
It didn't talk about specifically about how they would get referrals to the program, but I don't. I'd
Sounds
say
like they have a lot of different partners that
the
are
churches,
all
yeah.
getting referrals. They mentioned DHS,
Oh,
SNAP. Individuals receiving food stamps.
And we definitely want to make a connection with workforce programs through the chamber. People either, if people are struggling in that or deemed not appropriate yet. Right, in this program.
Next is the MICA navigator position.
This also included living adjustments for,
Yeah, I took that out.
did you get a number on that?
So I have the amount for them, but I went by their budget, and if I added up the navigator, I did this, I looked at the salaries of fringe and indirect, and that came to 167,575.
Okay.
But the essential workers, we weren't doing that for other programs, so I took that out.
What did you get a sense of what this person would be doing as a navigator?
Now, I'm thinking, listen, that's the information we got back. This is where the question was, we were trying to figure out, was this like for their internal? And Sandra, maybe you remember on this, was that it was staff who would be working to connect the families who maybe they're in for Head Start program to help them find out what other programs they would be eligible. They would be eligible for.
The review that Community Services provided noted that the proposal was a bit confusing, and it sounds like they wanted to focus on improving their own programs and people's access to those programs. They talked about improving the culture and taking care of essential workers. Population they hope to focus on are families with children 0 to 5. And they noted that neither the Good Neighbor Navigator position nor Community Services is going to focus on such a narrow demographic. Did that answer your question, Lisa?
Yeah, looking on our long spreadsheet thing here too, the position would change the experience for anyone served by NICA toward a more holistic approach in which they are connected to multiple services rather than visiting for one need at a time. Our core focus will be that any family with a child under 5 is connected to health services, early childhood programs, and crisis or energy assistance as quickly and necessarily as possible. You're right, this may be for just within their own internal programs that Microsoft offers. So I think that's what we were trying to figure out before.
Yeah, my sense is what they're talking about is process evaluation. And whereas process evaluation is useful,
Right,
I don't see it as appropriate for other things.
yeah,
Right.
I don't disagree, so I had it actually as a 0 for funding, but that if I were to fund it, I cut out the extra pay and just looked at the program, the person or whatever,
The navigator.
the navigator portion.
That's
So that I only looked at.
that's the internal process. Yeah.
Right,
Not
yeah. Like I said, I initially had 0 for it, but if you were all for it, then I had my reasons for why I was only going to do the navigator portion.
I don't think it's bad work. I don't think it's appropriate for it.
Sure.
Is it or as appropriate as the other things that we're doing?
Yeah. So I funded all of this. Looking at the goal is to have folks live in neighborhoods, so to purchase a home versus building a home and remodel it. And we provide housing for 5 people who either may be on a more restrictive living level or they need help, need some support, but they don't need 24-hour support. No, so you don't need staff with them 24 hours, and they do need staff that probably come into the day, they may not have it at night or things like that.
Yeah, I had down fully funding.
Did they have it didn't sound to me, I looked for it, that they had a property in mind, but I would assume that that's not a problem. They're not looking at a huge property. They're not looking at looking at remodel, but
They put home purchase on their budget for 300,000, so I'm gonna assume they've identified. Maybe not, maybe they're just going with the market
I think they're,
of what housing is.
I looked through it and I couldn't find anything that said we're looking at a house. I wish there had been something. I'm not questioning me, but I wish there'd been a little information about me
Not need.
in terms of, are they full? Are there all the, is this
Oh,
a new,
yes.
this is the same kind of housing, but more of it.
Because there is need. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I could say the waiting list at Main Street and other disability organizations are long. They are years
Yes.
long.
That's what I
Say that.
wanted, that's what I wanted to hear.
Yes, they are
Okay,
years
and
long.
I didn't see it in here necessarily unless I missed it, but thank you, that does it for me.
Yeah.
I'm for funding it all.
Primary healthcare.
That one I struggled with, quite honestly.
Which part?
Well, I think, again, I went back to our notation, that some not eligible for the review of amounts of funding. So just trying to.
What I've got a lot of that is we don't have enough money.
Yeah,
And a lot of it was regarding the dental. And I kind of thought now, there was funding that went to primary health that used to go to Micah for dental, correct?
yeah, but mine no longer does dental.
I know, that, I'm saying that
Oh,
money has
gotcha.
gone to primary health.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I hear you, yeah.
Yes, okay. So there.
They're talking about adding 2 more chairs,
Right.
and adding some extra staff. And if I'm remembering right, the money that was going to Micah was not enough to sustain the program within Micah. So they were already picking up a program that was underfunded.
Mhm.
Right. And I know the need is great. I think my struggle was, again, it's healthcare. So I'm like, okay, this is public health, especially the clinic portion. They do talk about the dental portion too. They can, if they're talking to people, identify, their connection with them be together. They could go right to the clinic or to the dentist. And when we did the tour there, they even talked about that to minimize people having to go.
Right.
Time. So I was getting all of that and stuff.
Maybe the construction part of taking 6 offices and shrinking it.
Well,
down
I
to
think that
2
was it.
people
I
in
think that
each
was it.
office.
I think that was where I struggled with, okay, if you're looking to mitigate COVID,
You don't throw people
you're
together.
not, unless they are, large enough office. That was just how it was. Are they now a petition? That's what I struggled with. The other portion I felt better about, but it was that portion. That is, if you're mitigating COVID, or that goal, when they reference it, I was trying to picture that.
Yeah.
Maybe if I saw floor plans, that would help me out, but that was the one portion.
The other thing I'm looking for, I've never seen this. It was something about not having revenues because of the low client count.
Is that part of their rent? that they
Yeah.
have For 12 months?
4 or 5 pages from the back, I believe, if I'm thinking about the same one you're talking about.
So what that means is their revenues are down because they don't have many clients, but it also means they don't have many clients.
I think they were not having enough clients through the pandemic is what they were.
Right, I think,
They're still trying to
They're trying to,
regain.
Well, I think they
They're
should.
trying to make it through the
places
pandemic.
did or
Yeah.
minimize. This is also a population that oftentimes they don't retain their appointments.
Right.
Yeah, so trying to build that back up.
Mhm. Rental assistance relieve the financial stress the in-clinic experienced. Applicants. Low patient census, many more self-pays, challenges with staffing, expensive PPE, and other needed supplies. If this portion is not funded, primary health continue to pay rent, of course, but our financial situation will be more precarious.
Be more open on this. I guess we had, about that construction cost. I didn't think Columbia to remodel, but we're saying. Again, I'm not looking at a floor plan, so yes, they may be reducing or making some changes, some construction changes step two in an office, but they may be pretty well apart, or they may have, what is it, those partitions that are in there. I'm not, and maybe that's a follow-up question we need to have with them.
I'm not. Wait a minute. The tie to COVID is the negative impact upon business.
Right.
And this is the first application we looked at that I think falls into that specifically. Donda. That's what this is about. It's hurt our business, and our business needs propping up to
Continue to provide
to
medical and
continue
dental
to
care.
be there for the people who need these medical services, these health services. And given that it should be a time-limited project, I want to look back at the budget again.
I feel the same way about the construction issue, do, Lisa.
But I appreciate how Linda referenced that as well. It is a medical facility.
Budget right now. How did they justify needing the additional 10 shares?
So they can provide more dental services, increase their ability to provide dental services.
That one step in.
Due to limited availability of dental offices who accept Medicaid patients, the pandemic amplified the need for greater access to dental care.
Right. It looks like the request includes adding a staff and purchase of pediatric and other dental equipment. So I'm not sure when we toured if they had pediatric or if it was more adult.
Yeah.
Project expands access to dental and medical care, including COVID-related testing.
Find any indication of how long the project lasts? How long, how many years?
I think they're just looking to add, I don't think there's a end date.
So it says if approved, positions would be posted immediately and equipment to support their work purchase. All other IT equipment would be purchased upon receipt of award. Renovation and construction would commence in June of 2022 and likely be completed August of 2022. Rent would be paid on a monthly basis if awarded.
I was looking at the clinical office specialist too. Requesting $43,000 position. They're requesting 10,000 for marketing community outreach of another position. They are requesting one position. If it's a full-time position, 48,000 would be much more than a year.
We only have rent for 12 months too.
Yeah, they only do rent for 12 months too.
So they're
think it's just a
probably
year.
just an annual.
The positions should be self-sustaining after year 2 as our volume shifts to more returning patients and less new patients.
Well, you said the money Micah had for dental was not sufficient.
That's what I'm remembering.
That's my sense too. I guess I would look at this as it's the dental capacity up. Dentists don't accept Medicaid, so that is very much needed. Pediatric, looking at, needs for kids, I think that's important. It gives them rent for a year. It allows them to kind of stabilize their budget. It gets them a year down the road towards making it work. I'm not too crazy about the remodeling plan, but they know their needs, and I'm sure as healthcare providers, they're not going to do anything. Hope they would not do anything that would be not good in terms of pandemic. If there were anything Wait, there's two positions in there. I'm sorry.
Right,
There's a health benefit specialist too, and a clinic office specialist too.
what's the help?
The health benefits specialist is to help people get set up on Medicaid or any other.
I know what they're eligible for, right?
Yeah, and the clinic office specialist,
admin, non-clinical
admin.
stuff that they can. That I believe what their narrative said was that person would help take some of the pressure off the providers who are spending a lot of time with their patients. Have some of the non-clinical stuff done by office. So if we pull the construction and the office furniture out, it's $396,000.
You know, I was rereading, so the construction is to renovate the front office area, and if you're adding another staff, that way will be more. What they're doing with the other offices where some staff are, is they're saying, we're gonna change out our furniture and put in, you know, they might have like giant desks, and some smaller desks. The room's probably big enough to fit two people, but because we've got these
Desk
huge
units.
desk units, they're just not conducive for the work we're doing. I was thinking they were doing construction on those rooms. They're not. It says construction with plus includes renovation of the front desk space as well as reconfiguring adjacent space. So that's build out off, you know, expand front desk area, build out office for additional health benefits, create additional lab space, which you would need, yes. Create a triage box. So I'm all okay with all of that. We have to read.
Consolidate 6 offices into 12. That says we need to office 6 more people.
It may be that's what they're doing is they're wanting to have some, well, they're wanting to make the lab larger. I'm thinking it's their current staff, it's how they're reconfiguring. Their lab needs to be larger.
So they're losing some office space because they need more lab space.
Right.
That's, okay.
Right. So after rereading that, and you get it cut in your mind one way, rereading it.
Yeah, after walking through it like that, I'd be comfortable fully funding it.
I think I can. I'm just thinking, how long ago was it that we went through there and they had just remodeled?
Last year.
Just last year, and they just remodeled, and now they're going through remodeling again.
But more on the clinic side. They didn't, we looked at the more the dental side. This is more on the clinic side.
Yeah.
They had just added the dental.
And I think there was a room in the dental, or was it open yet that they were like, well, we want to put, they had the capacity, and that's what I'm saying with the dental chairs to put in.
My note from our last time is some not eligible, further review for amount of funding. What did we say wasn't, what were we thinking wasn't eligible?
I don't know, but maybe it was the construction at the time. Maybe we were.
Lisa, do you have thoughts? No, okay. Well, I was just trying to think of as we were going back to our notations there too.
Yeah, I don't know what the sum.
Well,
not
maybe
eligible
you weren't
is.
looking at it as you kind of pointed out, Linda. You know, when you're saying looking at it through negative impact. You may not have, when we first initially reviewed this at that time with that mindset.
Ms. Mark, what did you have for expense category?
I don't have one.
Pardon?
Oh, wait, maybe I did. One minute. I had. One seven, one nine, 1.12. I had multiple ones for that. One seven, one nine, and 1.12.
So, in the interim final rule, under small businesses and nonprofits, with loans or grants to mitigate financial hardships such as declines in revenues or impacts of periods of business closure, for example, by supporting payroll and benefits costs, costs to retain employees, mortgage, rent, or utilities costs, and other operating costs.
I can go with it.
So that's all, that's.
Well, we have a question back at Roland
Mhm.
at the top. Whether we look at all of that or a portion of that. What I had done on my notes. Looks like we have some follow-ups with the bridge home or whatever. We've got a tentative amount put in there. That's my understanding. I'm just making sure that and then we are, sounds like the infrastructure, the Gilbert one is a no, and the other one I still have as a question mark. That we're waiting on. So that would be another, obviously another meeting on. It sounds like another meeting would be for information on 36 and 29, or if we get that information, it could be put into on a board agenda with discussion at that particular time. You're looking at just those. And zeroing was the other one that we had. Sorry, I knew that was one other.
So just to review the bridge home, that Heather Glenn. Hearing control, everyone. Question.
That's what I have here.
I did find out from Marcus, he emailed Heather Glenn. He called Metronet, they are not there yet. I can't remember if they said MediaCom was present. Just trying to find the email.
I thought they said MediaCom was, but I wouldn't swear to that.
I'm thinking that's what they said too. But then-
So where are we at for total?
They use. So Linda, when I left 8:30 in for Roland, you, that's what you had said.
I actually have an email.
Oh, fully funded, rolling.
And that's fine. I think we each have something different so we could see where we're at financially. If I've calculated right, Leanne, and this is not counting the Heather Glen, the Zeering, or the Bridge Home yet at this time. You'll have to see if you operate. I came up with the total for external, which was 7,353,491. 7,353,491 was the total for just for the external, and the internal.
What you get?
No, that's not right. Just hold on. Sorry, that's not.
9076.
Yeah,
9.
yeah, I was
97.
adding something else.
9076987 or 997. Yeah, is that what you got? Or
No, let's see, I'll get.
So for not putting anything for Vera at this point, $1 million for Roland. Nothing for Heather Glen at this point. Nothing for the Bridge Home.
But I just want to say the Bridge Home is still in the mix. We just have some questions yet for follow-up with them.
What are you doing on Navigator?
Yeah, I think I did not change hers.
Or Micah?
did not have.
I
Yeah.
think,
They removed it,
Okay.
not approved for ARPA funding, because it was more of the evaluation.
8,074,791.
So for infrastructure wastewater, do you have 3,070,000?
Yes.
And for infrastructure water for new affordable housing, did you have 369,780?
Yep.
For unhousing, 2,947,100. Oh, you didn't have the bridge, did you have the bridge home money in or out?
out.
Wow,
So that came to 2,000,000,
2191.
okay,
2,191,100.
yes, and then 282,660 for food, 771,300 for childcare, 247,457 for negative economic impacts, 8320.
Oh.
Different number there. Good job for negative economic impacts.
13899.
275, 104, 100, 285. Oh, clinic.
What did you come up with?
Now, I had some data or something else. 525.
Still off on yours. Oh, I think, I see what I did. had one for.
Do you have all of them, Leanne? You have that right there? Keep going. Oh, yeah, there it is.
I came up with what they had.
So what do you have for negative impact or whatever? Look at your- Okay, go, this one.
1389.
1389951.
That's what I've got now.
75. No, 4,857, 100,000. Zero. My calculator is getting burned out.
1,389,951. So what did you have for total, Leanne? Yeah.
4,791.
Don't keep giving it. That didn't sound right. Okay, are you sure? Just go back up to it. Can you do that right there?
8074791.
Yeah, I get 1,439,951. Why am I off?
For what? Negative economic impacts,
Right,
275,000,
right.
104,857, 100,000, 0, 385,000, 525, 494.
Yeah, and I keep coming with 1,439. I like that. Right, but that just.
Maybe you're transposing a number the same way every single time, because I get the same number. 1389.
And that's what my spreadsheet shows too.
I don't know, it's gotta be my calculator keeps coming up with the same. 1,439 is what it keeps coming up
What's your
with.
total now?
Mine keeps coming up with 1,439.
1,000 more.
Yeah, but I've got 275, I've got 104, and I've got 100. And then I've got the 385, and then the 5, oh, I did 575.
575.
That's why. There we go.
Man, what you got?
Got it figured out.
8074791. Yeah.
So, and Leanne, I know you got the internal, does that include? So I have the internal at, so what we talked about today, that, right, was the 3,423,400.
Huh? I
And
thought
then,
it was a 3,508,545.
so, okay. My question is, does that include the workforce and housing or anything from before?
None of that
Okay,
matters.
apparently I can't add today, so.
It does not.
It does not.
That's good.
And the housing I've taken out.
Right, that was general fund. Right, so that's,
So there's two externals that are already funded or decided on, and that was the broadband and the workforce development,
the broadband was 34,000.
34,000. So, they're included in that.
You have the exact number for the workforce.
I have broken down by year, as all I have on that workforce.
610,450.
Yep, that's what I got.
610,450.
Yes.
34,000.
You know, that's such a small amount. Hold it in there, but that's money I don't think.
Yeah, you voted when you voted on it, you voted to use ARPA funds, so that's why I included it in the.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that that might be money that doesn't get claimed. Because some of it was based on some funding requests that did not get funded. Stratford and Colo got funded. Plus they didn't apply the first time after all. and I would say that might be about half of that. Small amount of money.
12 million. 12,207.
I think we should add, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I think we should add at least 500,000 for administration for.
Oh, for a position.
Yeah.
Yeah, check on that, and then, we also need to hear back from those, right, those other ones, like the zeroing or whatever, to determine if we'll fund or at what level we'll fund, and then if there's money left over after that, then we can figure out what we want to do with anything, with anything extra as
Right.
well.
Right.
I agree.
So do we want to talk quickly about the grant manager position then?
Good job putting that together.
I used a lot of Latifah's information as background and built around that. And then Leanne also worked with me. on it. But it's basically just a rough draft of.
Did you send that out?
Did send it to you.
I don't think
There you
so.
go.
sorry.
You did? Oh, okay.
I was like, oh no. I
Leanne will
missed
share it on the
email.
S drive.
Oh, I was saying I could just email it to all
Just
three
when
of
you
you
think
real
you have
quick.
all
I've
the
got it.
boxes checked.
I thought you sent it to everybody, so I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah, I didn't send it to the board. I remember now. I think I sent it to ARPA.
I'm just trying to find it.
Oh, is it in the S drive?
Yeah. Found it.
Do you want it emailed to you?
It's our.
It's in there,
position
no.
draft.
You don't need it.
No, thank you.
Sorry, it took me like forever to find the email on my phone. Like,
So really, I guess what we were trying to do with this was just cover everything ARPA. You know, so this is basically the ARPA funds, manager, funds tracking, contract development, tracking, reporting person.
It looks good, it's very straightforward. Some of the other ones that pulled off the internet.
are we looking at more of a position, full-time?
You have it on your temporary contract.
Yeah, I was just curious how, like, because she had asked, I don't have any compensation or what, you know.
Well, I think we were talking just about the
Contract.
And if it's a contract, they're responsible for their,
Right,
Yep,
all of
Right.
that themselves.
right.
but like a rate, contract rate, are we doing just a flat fee contract for, or are you doing an hourly?
So
I mean, that's my question. It's like, how do you know how many hours? I think it's gonna take a lot up front, but then towards the last 2 or 3 years, I don't think it's gonna, I don't know if it's a full-time full-time. That's my question,
Yeah.
looking at this, is how do you determine, you know, that piece? I reached out to Scott County. They haven't decided. I don't know if anybody's talked to Scott County. They weren't adding a position. They were trying to absorb it, but they also threw around sharing a contract or something with another county that's doing this, because they must not think it's full-time for 4 years. I'm not sure it's full-time for 4 years.
I think it also depends on what kind of projects you're looking at funding, if you're doing primarily internal stuff.
Yeah, and they had a lot of external, I think.
Yeah.
but-
I think
They
Scott
do,
had,
but Scott has, they
tons
have a
of-
large amount of money. They got
33 million.
Yeah.
2 million.
Yeah.
Is what they got.
and they had a lot of external
You know,
projects.
They also had
Construction
you
comes
looking
in.
at early on, it may be, hey, it's more contracts, because up and going, and then you're kind of that little bit of a, I don't want to say a lull, you're still gonna have stuff to do, but until projects start going, and then.
And that's my thing is I just don't know how do you, like, do you do it on an hourly basis, contractor, hourly basis, they submit that? Or do you think it's gonna be
No,
well, I mean, this looks like more of a position as it's drafted, I know,
Mhm.
in the different functions and the responding to requests and doing different things. It's more of a temporary position.
Mhm.
I view it from an HR perspective, more of a temporary position for that many years versus just a contract piece to manage the grant.
and I would also be concerned it's a temporary position, it starts full-time, and then it really peters
Yeah.
out, that somebody's gonna go find
Yeah.
themselves another job. So what I would almost see it more as is somebody who sets this all up, gets the contracts done, gets the reports coming. And I'm just saying, maybe the job is done then. Maybe it's a setting up the process and then
Some tracking, especially,
you think,
well, in the beginning years as well as the out years, there's gonna be tracking and following up with the subrecipients and all of that.
I think so too, if you want to know if they're on track to utilize all their money by 2024, if they're not. You know, or if they're not able to meet the criteria for it, yeah, I think you're probably gonna need someone all the way through. Make sure
then
they're doing the
maybe
reporting that
you're
they need.
guaranteeing full-time, something equivalent to full-time employment if you want to keep somebody all the way through. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Almost saying like it's temporary, full-time is what you're.
I just wonder, I would just be really concerned about somebody setting up a system, and then we say, well, it becomes less work, less pay, somebody moves on.
That you're always gonna have that risk if you do it, if it's a contract person, and
Yeah.
you might have
I know,
turnover.
but you have to
Yeah.
prepare for it. You have to say,
Yeah.
that might happen, then what do we do?
So what if you have so is the company to manage this out of the picture? We're going with, or we're putting this out there, and if there's a company that wants to serve in this role, we
Yeah.
would take a look at that too. I'm
And the
just,
advantage of that is then they're moving somebody's time around among projects.
yeah,
And they can say, and if we say to them up front, we think it's gonna be full-time for a while, but not for a while, then they manage their workforce. We don't have to manage our workforce of one and say, how do we keep this person going now?
Yeah, I don't think we have made any decisions.
Nothing,
I think we were
okay.
just like,
Yeah, I think
let's
it's
get
well.
something pulled together and
Okay.
then talk about what
what
we
we
go
need.
next.
And I certainly wouldn't want to limit or cut out a potential company that might be interested in
Right.
applying
Right.
Right.
for that, because, yeah, they may say, gosh, this person, they're gonna be busy for this time frame, but when they're slower, they can shift to do something else within their company or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's where you look at, how do you set this out, that's for them to apply.
I know,
Mhm.
that's
That's a
that's
good
the
question.
difficult piece, and how, what do you put on,
Can we just say, we anticipate that the work will be full-time for a couple of years, for the first year or two, then we'll have lesser demand, and we're open to considering a proposal of either an employee, a contract employee or a firm. Can we just
I don't know,
put it out there that vaguely?
I don't know.
I would want to
It's so
be careful
hard.
of us saying, we think gonna be busier earlier and then we don't know.
Right,
That would be my only thing is, we have some of these projects that are remodeling or whatever.
And it might be dependent. One week might take 40, the next week 5. I just don't, I don't know. It depends on what,
and at this point in time, we don't know how many extensions there's gonna be on the funding too.
Well, that's true.
We do need to have a good idea though of the kind of responsibilities we want somebody to
Right.
take on.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'm just thinking in general, everything ARPA, but we have to, I guess, spell that out more. So that someone can price it.
And we're really talking about the person simply doing the externals, the internals. we don't
Internal
want
stuff, yeah.
going.
Right.
We don't need anybody's help with that. There's a lot going on.
Right.
Department heads do. you do.
They also submit a claim or they do something, so you know how to pull down the funds to pay for that, which is different than the externals or whatever.
Well, the externals are gonna be submitted.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying, we already have a process set up internally where we don't externally have them.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
So. Despite what all I've said, I have to admit that I'm more comfortable with working with one individual, whether it's in an employment status or on a contract than I am with a company, because I think the companies just kind of don't have as much ownership.
I think my thing is, if you put it out there, I don't know that you can limit them not
Right.
applying.
True.
So I think you look at how they make their argument, how they can meet the needs of what
Right.
we're asking.
And several of those examples were firms that were looking to hire someone that they could then hire out. It seemed like that's what those examples were.
They were hiring their workforce.
Yeah, yeah,
For all these ARPA projects.
right.
but they're probably managing multiple. It's not just one for Story County, like they would have a grants manager that would cover 2 or 3 different, I mean,
Right,
Right.
and then, because I think they could sell that as full-time.
right.
Because I think there'd be enough.
Right.
I just think there's gonna be some lulls that I don't, even if you do a temporary contract, whether it's a contract or an employee, I mean, there's gonna have to be some guaranteed number of hours or they're gonna
Right.
leave. Like, they are.
Exactly what I'm.
So I don't know if it's worth exploring. I mean, I don't know how much we've explored other counties, how they're doing that. And doing a 28E for
To
one,
share a person.
I don't know.
Well, there weren't a lot, well, when I went on base camp, there weren't a lot that had responded that said, a lot of them said that they were not hiring.
And that's what
And
I,
some said that they were gonna use, what is it, like RDG or
Yeah.
some other firm or whatever, that's where they were looking to go with.
Right.
And that's the same with our meetings too, they've been mixed on.
and maybe they just don't, they're not looking out far enough to know what the workload's gonna be. I think it's just that there's so many unknowns.
Right.
Once the contracts are done, then there is gonna be a lull until they start drawing down the funds. And then there'll be reporting and then there'll be claims and there'll be different pieces. But they're not all gonna come in at the same time, which makes it really difficult
Right.
to guarantee. Regardless,
Income.
yeah, whether it's a contractor or, I mean, I don't know how you guarantee a certain number of hours. It's so unknown. So I mean, we want if they're gonna work for full-time, you want there to be full-time work for them.
Right.
And I think there will be for the first piece of it. Just the ongoing, I don't know.
We did pull some information from a couple of positions from Johnson County. They had existing positions, but we're looking to hire.
Yeah, Johnson County has, I think, like 6 existing positions on the board of supervisors. related to outreach and project management and grant coordination. And so under the special projects manager, they're advertising now for project compliance specialist. I have the title incorrect. And then under their grants coordinator, they're advertising for project analyst, yeah.
And they're hiring
And
though.
they're hiring in those two new positions under existing positions to primarily manage the ARPA funding. And I think they're advertising as temporary positions, but they are internally acknowledging that they will likely become full-time positions after ARPA because of other needs. That's how she said it.
You know what? I think there's gonna be a lot of stuff going on as a result of the ARPA funding that's going out from us. And I would be incredibly surprised if we didn't find ourselves involved in some other projects. I wonder if we wouldn't be better off just accepting that upfront and hiring somebody, even if it's a contract or whatever, but I think there's gonna be a lot of things going on. We've got a lot of stuff. Broadband, we've got a study, that we really haven't gotten into yet. We've got a housing study we really haven't gotten into yet. We're all worried about staff's time right now.
We've got climate resiliency planning coming.
We have climate resiliency planning coming. We have a whole lot of projects right now, and we've been, I think all of us kind of worried about how much stuff we're putting on staff. I think we could, we don't have to say if the position is gonna be, forever, but I think I don't, whole bunch of things I don't know right now. How would a job description be different than other people's job descriptions? Where would we house somebody? Who would somebody report to? I don't know. But I think at this point that we've got enough projects going on that we could use the help.
So are you proposing a new hire?
Something. Maybe by contract, maybe a contract, see how it works out. But I think that rather than put money to a consulting firm that's going to be very glad to take our money and provide us some bare bones stuff, I think it's a better investment to take the money and put it in a contract position or a position. And maybe we call it a temporary contract position and see how it works out. I think we've got a whole bunch of stuff in that we've been talking about. And I don't suggest that lightly. But we've got the opportunity right now. I mean, ARPA funds give an opportunity because they're temporary. We're giving opportunities here to agencies and communities to do some things. Some of those are like infrastructure. Okay, that's one and done. But there are some things in this list that aren't one and done. They're meeting an ongoing need. What this ARPA funding gives some of these agencies is an opportunity with a few years of funding to see if they can find a good solution to some problems. Maybe utilizing the ARPA funding we can kind of do some of the things, see how we can further some of the projects that we're working on that fit in these art categories and fit with these agencies. I don't think that would be an inappropriate use of funds.
Would you look at initially posting for whether like a contract position with a potential for it to become a full-time position?
The temporary position.
A temporary position contract.
I'm a little concerned with the contract, with leaving it open-ended and being directed by us. That's not I mean, if you're gonna do a contract position, you set everything up, and this is it. They go out, they're on their own.
Right.
If you're going to say, hey, we're gonna leave it as number 10, perform other duties as assigned, leave the ARPA stuff out of there, it's an employment situation. I don't want the IRS coming in and saying, look,
You're right.
you know, so,
I just put that in
no, I know,
because I
but.
always think that.
But I think, no, I know, but I think that's where they're going now. Do you want just an ARPA, Story County ARPA grant manager to use ARPA funds for? Or, I mean, I don't know about the other, because
How about this? How about it's an employment position and the time spent on ARPA is billed back to ARPA? The rest of the time comes out of general fund.
How do you do that?
They keep a timesheet. They keep a timesheet. I spent 2 hours doing this contract, I spent an hour doing this, whatever, and then we use ARPA funds for the time of the position, that is for ARPA administration. And the rest of it goes to other projects that we.
I could see that. I could also see doing just an ARPA grants manager, see how that goes. If we need to add additional things later
Yes.
on,
Yeah.
then you
Okay.
add that other piece. I
Yeah.
think, I think you'll have more information a year down the road, or
Yes.
6
And
months
so
to a
that's-
year.
That could be.
Yeah.
We could say a year down the road, you know what, this has proved useful, we still need the person for some ARPA, we've got all these other things still hanging on to.
Well, so
Coming up.
the first year is all ARPA. That's all that person's gonna do,
Right.
just ARPA
Yeah.
stuff. And once that person is in there, then we determine if there's going to be, and it's a temporary with, like Johnson County, with the possibility of becoming
Permanent.
permanent, depending on.
I
what
would
things
be
look
more
like.
comfortable if you're gonna direct this person or this position. I would be more comfortable having it be a temporary employment position versus a contracted grant
Yeah,
manager. I mean, it depends on what you're gonna do. There's gotta be some clear
We've got a
cut boundaries.
person here with time, because has some time on their hands and we've got an urgent project, we're probably gonna end up moving into that sooner than we think,
Well,
and
and
the person do other work.
yeah, that kind of concerns me a little bit.
Mhm.
I think we need to set clear
Yeah.
boundaries for that person.
Right.
That first year,
Right.
Just
even
ARPA.
if we have 100 projects that we want someone else to help us on, we're not asking this person, because all they do is ARPA stuff.
Right.
And
And we say that not having really a good idea of what the ARPA workload will be.
I think for the first year, your ARPA workload is gonna be fairly high.
Yeah.
Getting all the contracts, doing all the correspondence, getting everything put together. I think it's gonna be, yeah,
I think it's gonna be a full time.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's,
An ARPA speak is really gonna take some time, just by itself.
Right.
I'm just gonna ask this, if it turns out not to be that way, are we closing the door on revisiting that decision?
Well, if you're doing it as a temporary anyway, it's not as though you can't say this week, there's not. It's not gonna be necessarily always a 40-hour week.
well, if you advertise it as temporary full-time, it is.
It is a
temporary full-time.
It's a salaried position then, correct? It's a salaried position.
Depends, it more likely would be exempt salary. But it's a full-time position, but it's temporary in terms. I mean, it would still get all the benefits, because you're not gonna say it's temporary. Employment versus contract, those are two very different things. Do you want somebody to come in and manage the grants? You could write a contract to have them do that. If there's gonna be some different things and you're gonna direct them on different things, whether it's ARPA or not, then it's more employment. I just, at this point, we don't really know. You don't know what it's gonna take, honestly.
I like the idea of temporary employee better than contract. Because I think we're going to want to have more control over what's happening and be able to provide some direction. And I think you're right. I think we do have a lot of projects coming. So I like the idea of that direction, but I do worry that that person in the first year just be ARPA. And I don't know if we can write an agreement that's like a temporary 6-month position, then we revisit it in 6 months, or it's a full year position, and then
You could do whatever you
If
want.
it's temporary, it's temporary.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, the challenge is.
You
some
the
folks
challenge is
want-
getting somebody to apply for a temporary position.
Yeah.
But you could advertise it as a 6 month to get you through the first contracts, and then it could be extended. I mean, Iowa State does that all the time
Right.
because of different funding. I mean, but I get a little nervous to going the contract if we don't have it clearly spelled out. Like the alternatives is spelled out. I mean, it is, here's what it is. This, you're on your own. You're administering that.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing that we have that clear cut piece yet. I still think you could share with another county for the first year or two also.
It's finding out which counties around.
I know. And do you need them close? Do you need them? Yeah.
And we can't get this money out until we have contracts. So I think we need to move pretty quickly.
And the challenge with sharing, just like if you share an employee with another manager, is that employee gonna focus more on their work or our work or balance?
Right.
Well, I don't know if other counties are who they're having write their contracts or what they're doing. I don't know if they're having their grant manager do it or are they having somebody else do it. You know, I think a lot of different counties, it's a whole bunch of different people that are responsible for different components of it.
Right.
I think some are just looking at, okay, grant manager, that's not necessarily writing the contracts, you know.
I think it would be a good idea to have that person involved in that piece, since if they're the ones that are going to be
They need to know,
doing
yeah.
the work of interacting with the agencies and.
I don't want to come in and have a bunch of contracts and say, who wrote these? I don't want to rewrite them all. If I'm going to do any performance measures on this or try to measure what's going on, I think they need to.
I think they need to at least be involved in writing it,
Involved.
but how quickly can we get somebody?
That's the
That's the
question.
thing.
That's a concern. If you don't want this going on for too long, then you're gonna have to move on.
If we decide today that we're comfortable going a certain direction, I'll just, well, we have to do it at the board meeting, but just in terms of some ideas here. Say it's going to be a temporary position, county position. We'll have benefits. And you would figure out, Melissa, what the salary range would be.
And you could set that, it's a temporary, so it doesn't have to, you know,
All in.
fitting at this point. You
Sure.
could set it at whatever.
And we could advertise and see what happens.
And I just say there's no negotiation. This is what we're paying. It's ARPA funded.
So you could
Temporary.
bring, you've got a good start on a job description. Could look at it next Tuesday.
That means I have to have everything done by Thursday at 3. Yeah.
No.
Maybe the
Sorry.
Tuesday after that, we're after.
Sorry. There's just a lot of
Today's
stuff
Monday,
due the
right?
beginning.
No.
Well, there's a lot of stuff due in January.
Yeah, we don't want you to.
And I'm trying to get still negotiations and stuff, so.
And we're.
Budget work sessions
budget,
start
yeah.
next week, so I mean,
So 18th. On the agenda on the 18th.
Yeah, I can make that work. I'm just put next week's early. Wow.
I hate to do this to people, but I would be remiss, if I don't bring it up now, I would feel like I should have. I'm gonna go back toward this. I'm looking at $1 million for Roland for storm sewer upgrades and water main looping, and that stands out like a sore thumb. I think we should reduce the price on it. Because we took, actually down from 1 million to 500,000 is the largest we have for any other. We're actually larger communities than Roland. I just want to bring it up, because I've been looking at it for the last 10 minutes and saying it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, we haven't given any direction for putting anything
No.
specifically on.
And we haven't, we're still pulling up numbers and seeing what we have.
Sure, sure. I can say there, I just look at those, some of the others, we're fully funding them at their request. Roland is just the degree of what they need, so they're asking for full funding at that request. The only one that we really reduced down was the Huxley.
We reduced Collins only by 90,000.
Well, that was a whole separate project.
Yeah, well, it depends on how people ask for them. There were some that were like one application with 3 separate projects or something. You want to stick with it, or you want to?
I mean, I'm fine with it being $1 million. If you want to reduce it down, that's fine. I'm just,
Okay. I just wanted to double check if it was okay with it.
yeah.
I'm okay with it. I'm also okay with us talking about it. Do we have any other, I don't see any other ARPA meetings on our calendar.
No, don't.
I was just saying, yeah, do we need another one for this, or were we going to, if we got some of the other information, just talk about it in the board meeting? Yeah, do you have the items on the board agenda and discuss it, or do we have one more ARPA meeting in?
I feel more comfortable with another work session.
Okay. Not sure. Maybe the 18th in the afternoon. That was for me.
Isn't that ISAC?
Isn't that ISAC? Isn't that why we
ISAC
didn't
is the
schedule?
19th.
19.
Oh, okay. I don't have it on my calendar, but I knew we couldn't have anything on those days, so.
18th at 3 o'clock. Sandra, do you think you'll get information back by then?
Would I have this back by then? I didn't hear.
Information from Bridge, Zeering.
We had the mobile one that might be from Amelia and Leanne to get that one.
Yeah. Other one.
Other one, yes.
I should be able to. I need to check with somebody's notes just to make sure I have all the questions that we wanted to send out.
Bridge, yeah. I'm glad.
So. I know it's, I don't want to drag anything down, but it's after 12. So I just want to make sure that for
We want to move the ones we have identified right now external onto a board agenda. And then we know the ones that we have questions on that may be on a future board agenda once we get that information back after our January 18th meeting for those.
I think that's a good idea.
So the internals plus the externals that we've agreed on.
Yes.
think we would wait till probably the 18th, till something is on the agenda with the position.
Position and the remaining externals.
Right. Well, the remaining,
Oh,
there
they're
might be
trying to
after
do that.
that,
Okay,
you know.
got it. That's an afternoon for that.
Yeah, they may have to wait till the 25th, because we would have the meeting on the 18th, but it's just next week with our budget work session, just seems
Yeah.
too hard to fit that in, and just too much to put in for everyone else to try to do that as well.
Oh,
So we want to go to public comment. Are we ready to move on to public comment then?
I'm ready. I don't know if you just wanna, how you wanna do it, if you want to read them or have them unmute. If they wanna make comments.
Debbie says she's happy to answer any questions for him.
Yeah, she's up now.
I can do that.
Okay, yeah. Jody, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Thank you.
Jody, hi. This is
Hi.
Linda Murphy. And this is probably my ignorance, but I'm just not understanding something about the eightplex.
Okay.
I was under the impression that that was owned previously by the Emergency Residence Project, the old, what used to be the Bridge Home. Is that not the case? Am I?
No, Hunziker owns this eightplex currently.
Okay, is it somehow affordable housing, designated for affordable housing, and if so, how?
Right now, it is low income, but by us acquiring it, it allows us to use those 8 units for our supportive housing program for individual adults. Currently, we only have 4 apartment units that are ours for supportive housing, and those are family units. So this eightplex would allow us to be able to have housing for individuals, in addition to utilizing some other of the community units that we use currently.
But people who need affordable housing are in those other 4 units right now.
In our 4 units,
The eightplex.
The eightplex.
um,
You
we're
have-
not, no, they're not. We're not working with anybody in that eightplex, no.
I think what Supervisor Merkin is saying is the people who are currently living in that eightplex, they are living in an affordable housing situation. Like Hunziker is providing these units at a lower rent.
No.
No, these are not lower income housing units currently.
No, I don't believe so. Sherry, hang on, Sherry, go ahead.
These are market rate 1-bedroom apartments. So the people living in them range from college students to people getting ready to retire.
So what is your arrangement with Hunziker for using the 4 units? You pay the rent? You just have a contract with them to have them?
We're not using this eightplex at all right now.
Isn't it at all? Oh, okay.
No, we're not using it. We have on our current campus a 4-plex apartment unit that is for family units. And those families are in our supportive housing program.
That must be what I'm confusing then. That was confusing that with the eightplex. So the eightplex has never been owned by Emergency Residence or the Bridge Home, or has never been leased by you.
No,
It's a particular operation. You would like to buy it to use it for supportive housing.
that is correct.
People you would be displacing who are living there now are not people who are there because of any low or moderate income housing program.
That is correct.
I think I understand now. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. If there's other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I do have a little information, additional information I would like to share on the purchase of the property.
Okay.
So this is not a long-term project. Our intent is hopefully by the end of next year, we will be starting construction. We have an architect hired. We have an engineer hired. We have done a feasibility. We've actually been working on this for 2 years on the backside of things. We have conducted a feasibility study for the portion that we'll need to do fundraising for. The feasibility study came back and said, yes, we can raise the funds that we will need. And this is so badly needed. If you've not seen our shelter, you should come and see it. We have 2 old homes and we really only have space for single men, but our biggest demographics are families and children. And we currently are families with children, I'm sorry, and women. And we currently have no real shelter space for them on our campus. We are using motels for them, which, as you know, is a big expense that we don't want to continue to incur. We have seen our numbers nearly double in the last year, including the numbers of turnaways that we are having. We've got many community partners, community leaders involved in this already, all supportive of the project. So I just want to reiterate we're closing on the property on March 1st. This is a project that will continue to move forward in its other project stages, and that we've been working on it, for quite some time. And I have bubble diagrams that the architect has put together that I'm happy to share with you to show that this is in progress and it is going to happen in the time frame that is required. And the reason this is so badly needed is we need to get these folks off the street in order to get them housed. What we are doing is ending the cycle of homelessness, one family, one individual at a time. And we can't do that using a facility that is a home and not meant for the functional programs that we provide. My apologies about the dog barking. And so that is something that I wanted to make sure that that is clear. And I would be happy to answer any other questions about this. As you know, we need this terribly. I've had a call from Sandra in the past about an individual in Story County experiencing homelessness who we couldn't serve because we are full. We'll get these calls from the Ames PD about this because we're full. This is a project that is really just vital to our community and to our county, because for every person on the street, it costs $40,000 a year. We can get them off the street and into our programs, then it cuts in half the cost that the counties and the cities are facing of people experiencing homelessness. But we have to be able to get them off the street. And right now we're not functionally equipped to do that with the space we have.
Jody, the new campus that you're talking about, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yep.
The new campus that you're talking about, is it to provide emergency shelter?
It is it's multifunctional. I have the bubble diagram if you want me to put it up on my screen, or if you want me to, I'm happy to come and share it with you too, but basically there will be a unit on the east side of the street, a unit on the west side of the street. The unit on the west side of the street would serve as the main center for homeless adults. There'll be a wing for men, women, and non-binary individuals for the shelter stay. So this is a place for them to stay. It's non-congregate while we're working on getting them into housing. In this area, there will also be an medical area for medical services to be provided. There will be a kind of a open community area so we can do drop-ins. If someone's on the street in the middle of the night and we're full, people can come in there. It will also provide us with a warming center, a cooling center, something that we currently do not have in our county. And that's a huge risk of us losing someone on the streets. And we can then use it for overflow as well during those weather extremes. It also provides a lot of functionality to be able to better work with the individuals, to make sure they're getting housed, to get them into the programming that they're needing with other organizations. The west side of the street will provide family shelter, as well as community space and services space. In this side would be most of our office space, but we also have 5 other human service organizations that have been involved in this project with us for 2 years now that are looking to jump on board, have space in there so we're all together. We can be more efficient in sharing technologies, sharing central services. Also, many of the clients we work with, they work with, so it would all be right there together. That is a super, super quick overview of what is going to all be happening in the building. It is not just a shelter. It is a campus that allows us to achieve our mission of ending the cycle of homelessness, one family, one individual at a time. And we know that it works because we've been doing it for the past year and a half. We have people housed currently in our supportive housing program that have been living in Ames for 10 years, homeless.
I'm sorry, we understand the need. I would like to see things such as construction plans, some kind of plans, building plans, a time frame of when you think, how much funding you have now, when you think you're going to get it, what does the construction timetable look like? You did a good job in your application of talking about the need. I do not see specifics about the program, and when you're asking for over a $2 million investment, quite frankly, I need to see some more specifics about the project.
Okay, we have that. We have that. We can get that to you. We'd be happy to get that to you. How would you like to receive that?
We still have concerns, as you know, about the land issue. If we can use the ARPA funds to purchase land, and that's one reason we have not asked for that. It's just when you were talking now, I just thought you've given me a little bit of about the whole information I would have wanted to know about this project, but just now, not in your application. So that's why I said that, but let me back up a second and see where we are on the land issue, because it's not seemed like we can use the money to purchase land. Is that correct?
I guess I would like to know where that is stated, just so I can get back with our experts who work with these types of grants, who have told us it is an eligible expense and provided us examples of other entities that have used it for this purpose. So if you can just reference to me what you're referencing, that would be greatly helpful on our end too.
Referring into land acquisition, and part of that comes from the guidance we've been getting from NACO that have come from the U.S. Treasury, who have talked about holding off on, it is not clearly stated that you can do land acquisition. It is not clearly stated that you cannot. The one thing we do know is that there is land acquisition if you were to disperse of that after so many years, you have to go to the federal guidelines you can't just like, if you use money for land acquisition and then said, oh, I'm gonna sell this area now, whatever's not gonna work out. You have to go through federal guidelines to be able to, dispose of that. You can't just up and sell it and take the profits. I think part of it for us is looking at it, there was so many questions with it, we just decided that that wasn't an area that we wanted to fund. Because it also had a fallback on the county as well in our reporting with those dollars, and that was just not, we just made that kind of that determination, and it's with the same thing with, we had an internal application that was for land acquisition, and we said no to that as well.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. We have every intention, and as I said, every plan in place to build this, because we really don't have a choice at this point if we want to continue to serve the need that's out there. But I appreciate that clarification.
I appreciate the information about the 8plex. That was, I just didn't know where we were going there, so that was very helpful. Yeah, before we shoot any more questions to you, let us wait and see where it finally comes down on the land.
Mhm.
And it sounds like right now we're being cautioned not to go that direction.
My name is Sherry Riley, and I just wanted to add a couple of things. I know that the money would need to be spent within, well, it says the funds would need to be spent before the end of 2024. We plan to have our project almost completely finished before the end of 2024, in addition to having this money spent if we acquire the land with it. And I think what you're saying is that by acquiring land using these funds, there would be like a length of time during which that entity would need to remain in that space on that land. I don't know if it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but we have a track record in Ames that's over 30 years long. And we are expanding because we plan to remain in Ames. We plan to serve Story County. We've expanded our footprint to include 4 other counties, but we are headquartered and we plan to remain headquartered in Ames. And so that is not gonna, we don't perceive that as a problem. We don't plan to go anywhere. We plan to stay right here and provide services in our 5-county region from Ames. And the other point that I would make is that the money is supposed to help alleviate impacts of COVID-19. And we're all very aware that the dawn of the Omicron variant, COVID's not going anywhere anytime soon, but the supports for families are going away. The child tax credit, the extended unemployment benefits, things like that are going away. And so the need is going to fall more and more and more on organizations like us to pick up the slack to provide that gap. And so I think that now is the time for this investment in the bridge home, because we are going to be the organization that's best positioned to support this need going forward, but only if we have this new facility.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Yeah. Loris, did you have a comment or question?
Hi, good morning. Thank you. My question was, can those of us involved with construction or rehab related projects, would you entertain a submission of a request for a change in the amount requested? The reason is, in the last 6 months, there's been well, the whole year, a big increase in the cost of construction. So the numbers, like on our project, are $250,000 more than when I got the original estimates from the builder. Now, these are estimates, okay? And part of the reason also is that when at least we got our estimates, we were not aware of what the requirements would be get this money, the federal money, and they do require Davis-Bacon wage levels. And according to my contractor, he doesn't think all the subcontractors submitted with Davis-Bacon prevailing wage. Now, sometimes in Ames, because we have a healthy market, sometimes the wages are actually being paid or just naturally at the Davis-Bacon prevailing wage or above. Okay, but so I'm just asking about if there's any way that we could submit, and maybe some other, construction related entities submit an adjusted request. Higher, obviously.
I wasn't clear that Davis-Bacon had to be utilized. I thought it was only if there were other federal funds being utilized for the project.
You know,
That was under state law, but I thought they waived Davis-Bacon for ARPA funds.
that would be wonderful. You have much more information than I do, Lisa. Okay, so that would make my particular, the contractor and all the subcontractors very happy just in having to go back and figure out what they are. So thank you. Okay, so that took care of that. So the other amount, the other increase that I've gotten is due to cost of construction materials. And in part of that is because we'd like to we're trying to raise the money and break ground in March, close at the end of March instead of the beginning of March, like Jody and the bridge home. So, so anyway, I'm just asking, if there's any way to ask for a supplemental percentage of an increase on the construction funds.
In our list. And that could apply to so many areas.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm speaking for it. Yeah, that would apply to, I'm sure it would apply to a lot of our wastewater.
Right.
The other ones, I don't know about broadband, but I think a lot of the higher level projects it would apply to. So that would, saying yes would probably, we'd probably have to say yes to everybody on that, and that would send us back to the beginning of our process.
Well, yeah, and thus far, we've had that question, at least one other project, and thus far we said not to.
I think the other thing too on that, I appreciate you bringing it forward, Laura, is we still have some projects that we're not sure on funding yet. And, with, depending on that additional funds that we have left, whether we open the applications again for the several million that we have left, or what we're going to do with that yet hasn't been determined. So I would be a little reluctant because I would feel like you'd almost have to open it up for all. That you couldn't do, and not just external, you'd have to look at internal as well. And to say,
I understand. I'd have kicked myself if I hadn't asked. Okay, just I do understand your rationale. I appreciate it, and at least then that we're all under the same kind of thing. I want to thank you guys once again for all the time you and the staff are spending on this, and wow, just amazing. So anyway, I'm going to thank you for the support we've got, and I'm going to mute myself again. Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Do we have that answer on the Bacon Davis?
I was just doing it quickly online. I can find some more information. I can talk with Jamie again, but I believe I actually read something in that before that said that Davis-Bacon was waived for these parts, but I'll double check so that we make sure that we get back
I was
to.
thinking I saw it in the FAQs as well.
Yeah.
And
But
this
it would be
is,
nice-
this is Jody. That was what my consultant had informed me of as well, that the Davis-Bacon is waived for this particular case. And as Laura's, I'm sorry, I just wanted to say thank you also. I know this is a lot of work for all of you, and we're very appreciative of what you're going through with, I know it's a nightmare. And we're just grateful that you've taken this much time to consider the project and look things over. So thanks.
Just found it. It's in the November 15, 2021 FAQs at 6.17.
6.17.
Are eligible infrastructure projects subject to the Davis-Bacon Act. Do not apply to projects funded solely with award funds from the CSF, this program, except for something undertaken by the District of Columbia. So it only applies to something in the District of Columbia. Recipients may be otherwise subject to requirements when award funds are used on a construction project in conjunction with funds from another federal program that requires enforcement of the Davis-Bacon Act. So if you got other federal funds that require it, you have to use it, but not if you're just using the ARPA funds.
And so what number was that again?
6.17. I'm surprised I found it that fast.
Oh, yeah, right here.
Okay, so, next meeting is January 18 at 3. And we'll talk about the temp position at the board meeting that same morning. Anything else that we need to go over?
So,
We are adjourned.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for hanging in with us.